Case moths or bagworms, ooh, these can make a lot of folks cringe when they hear those terms. Case moths can be potentially very destructive little critters, kind of in the same way humans are, by our very nature, destructive to the earth. Yet in both of our cases, there are some redeeming qualities. The case moth to me is a kind of magical animal in much the same way as a hermit crab who finds a suitable and uninhabited snail shell and simply moves in, or maybe the decorative crab who selects all kinds of debris to adorn his or her shell in much the way little girls and grown women decorate themselves with jewelry and glamour. The case moth larvae doesn't move into a vacated shell, but does build in much the same way that a decorative crab does. Using fine secreted silk fibers of its own, the case moth larvae pastes and weaves tiny pieces of the wood and grasses and even fibers it finds or saws off near and even from its food source, and so creates a cunning, conical shaped little shelter that it can add on to as it grows. With only its head and its thorax ever exposed, the larvae can move about with not only some safety, but can also pull back into its artistically designed shelter for protection, even sealing off the larger opening until danger passes. Lugging this seemingly heavy shelter along, these crafty artists can travel almost in disguise. The case moth lives most of its life as a larvae, so the shelter it is designed and continues to add on to has a tiny opening at the base to allow droppings to escape. In some parts of the world, a case moth can live for a very long time as a larvae before finally maturing into an adult, sometimes up to 3 years. Here in North America, the lifestyle is generally the cycle of a single year. When the biological clock tells them, the case moth larvae seals off their shelter door completely. They turn around upside down with their head pointing downward and begin to pupate into adulthood. Like cicadas, the adult stage is very short and is devoted only to mating. The adult male has wings and is a grand and colorful flyer, but the female is not able to fly at all, so she lays her eggs inside her shelter. Eventually, as their little larvae drop out the end, and with a tiny silken thread, they're carried off by the wind. My little fellow here is more active during the day. When evening finally arrives, he climbs onto an available sturdy stalk or twig, spins a lasso of silk, and then hangs his shelter by that single thread with the narrow end pointing downward, and himself pulled in to sleep for the night. You can see how very small my little guy is. Here he's eating from a very tiny little piece of grape. Outside, case moth larvae make great meals for birds and other smaller animals. But I must admit that I find these animals most interesting because no two shelters look alike, and the appearance can even seem to be a single little twig, or a tiny little pine cone, or a little knot of leaf debris.